Hi, and welcome to Debbie and Neha's birthday celebration hop. Today we are celebrating the November birthdays of Debbie from Debbie J's Crafting Corner, as well as Neha from Crescent Creations. Both of them are huge contributors to the YouTube community and friends of mine, so I'm excited to be participating in this wonderful hop with them today. As you can see, they've gathered tons of sponsors, tons of prizes that are available to win. I will get into that a little bit further into my video, but first let's jump into the products I'm using on my birthday card today. From the Greetery, I have the Pampas Grass. This stamp set has been in my collection for a little bit and I haven't had a chance to use it. There's 3 different styles of Pampas Grass. There are 3 layers of each design. I'm also going to use from the Greetery the Everyday Labels, and then there's a coordinating die called Handmade Labels Dies. These dies also go with another set that's available over in the Greetery store. The inks I'm using are from Catherine Pooler and Tim Holtz. I'm starting with Mint to Be, Seafoam and Sage, Pink Champagne, Rose Petals, and Sugared Lavender, and finally Vintage Photo, Antique Linen, and Ground Espresso. I'm also going to bring in my Gilded Embossing Powder from Brutus Monroe. I do have a piece of cardstock that I'm going to stamp my sentiment onto. I've treated my paper with an anti-static tool, which is basically cornstarch or baby powder, and I have added some clear embossing ink to my stamp. The stamp says 100% birthday, 100% happy birthday, enjoy your day. I'm adding that gilded embossing powder. I did tap off any of the excess, and I'm using my heat tool, which has been heated for about 30 seconds to melt that ink. I want to add some distress ink and antique linen because I am going to add this same antique linen distress ink to my card panel. I want to make sure that it coordinates nicely. I will off camera cut it out using the Handmade Labels Die. Here I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. As you can see, I do have a stitched panel. This stitched panel was sitting on my desk. I didn't stitch it or die cut it on purpose. I am actually going to cut the stitching off because I need my card panel to be just a little bit smaller. But first I'm going to start with the largest piece of Pampas Grass, and we're going to use a pink combination. We're going to start with that Pink Champagne, which is going to be the more solid of the 3 images. We'll layer it up with the Rose Petals. This is kind of like an abstract, so you can just get it in the general area and it's going to look nicely. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I have my second layer and I'm using that Rose Petals. And finally, I'll layer up the 3rd image, which is going to be layered up with the Sugared Lavender. Now the Sugared Lavender does have a pinkish purple tone as lavender would, but when I add it to the other 2 colors that I've already stamped, it's going to give me kind of a mahogany feel, and I really love the look of this. I wanted to go with a different color combination, so this card today is going to be in the pinks, the greens, and the tan or brown tones, and I really thought that that would give this a little bit of a fall feel, since Debbie and Neha both have November birthdays, but it wasn't going to be a traditional fall colored card. I'm going to stamp on the left and the bottom of this, so I'm going to add these little Pampas Grass. I'm going to change the height of how I'm placing them onto the panel. You do notice that I'm not using the entire stamp, and I'm going to come in with my brown combination. The first color that I use is the lightest, which is Antique Linen. I do have the A set, so I started with A1, which was the more solid of the images. I added Vintage Photo to A2, and finally I'm going to add that touch of Brown Espresso to A3. I'm going to use that same brown combination again over on the left side of this frond. I call them fronds, they're grasses. This grass actually is from South America. I did look it up. Well, I didn't look it up. I asked Alexa. I said, Alexa, is it Pampas grass or is it Pampas grass? She corrected me, told me it was Pampas grass and that it originated in South America. So there's your little bit of trivia today on how I learned how to pronounce the name of this stamp. Sometimes you look at them and it seems like it would be obvious, but I wanted to call it Pampas Grass and I just felt like it was wrong. So once I finish up with this brown combination, as you can see, I've started with a green combination and now I'm using the C images. So I started with C1 and I used my mid-tone. So my mid-tone was Seafoam. The solid image is the C2, and that's where I used my lightest color, which was Mint to Be. And then finally, I'll add in C3, which is going to be my darkest color, and that's going to be Sage. I want to talk a little bit about this giveaway. I did want to mention that in order to enter the giveaway, you do need to leave a comment. So if you stop at my channel, which you have, and leave a comment, that's one entry. If you go to Debbie J's Crafty Corner and leave a comment, that is number 2. And if you go to Neha's, that's a 3rd entry. So there are several participants in this hop. I will have the entire hop linked in the description box below. We have worked hard to bring you a ton of inspiration, and this is a great way for us to help celebrate Debbie and Neha. They have worked so hard to get these sponsors, and I hope that you're one of the lucky winners. Debbie is going to announce the winners over on her channel on November 20th. So make sure that you head over to her channel on the 20th to see if you're one of the lucky winners. If you like what you see on our channels, please make sure that you give us all a big thumbs up. Make sure that you leave that comment as an entry. And if you haven't subscribed and you're new to my channel, I want to thank you and welcome you. And I would like to say, please hit that subscribe button if you like what you see today. Here I'm adding the next pink combination. As you can notice, I have 2 of each color right now, but I do want an odd number combination of this Pampas Grass. So I'm going to move this over to the left side of my Misty. I'm going to bring in the largest of that grass, which was that B combination, and I'm going to add the brown color combination. So that's going to give me an odd number of grass, and I feel like that brings more balance to my card. Once I finish with this, I'm going to remove it from my Misty, and I am going to add some of that antique linen to the background. I really like the light color, the white, but I wanted to give it, because it is a fall card, I wanted to give it more of a vintage feel, so I am going to add that antique linen. I'll leave a little bit of white space over at the bottom left-hand side, so I'm not going to add that antique linen all over the card panel. I'll leave a little bit of white space, and then I'll distress it a little bit more around the edges with the vintage photo. I am going to cut down this card panel as I mentioned, so I'm going to cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4, which means I'm going to cut an 1/8 inch off each side with my guillotine trimmer. When I cut that 1/8 inch off each side, it is going to make my card panel, as I said, 4 by 5 1/4. I will bring in a top folding card base. It's going to be a rose colored card base, and that's going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So I'm going to have a little bit of that rose peeking out. I like to add splatters to my card panels. It makes my heart very happy, especially with my Gonzai Tombi Starry watercolors. I'm going to use 2 different shades of the gold. I'm going to use this lighter gold right here. I have a small brush. I added water to that watercolor, and I'm doing a tapping motion to get some nice small splatters. I'm pretty heavy-handed with my watercolors, and then I bring in more of a yellow gold just to add a little bit more contrast to this. And there you can see just how beautiful that background is. I made sure that I did add that gold to that Pampas Grass because I didn't want to leave that section out. Once I trim this down, I will glue it directly to my card panel using my art glitter glue, and then I'm going to cut a second piece using the Handmade Labels dies out of that rose colored cardstock, I wanted to incorporate it just a little bit more. So now I not only have the rose color on the grass, but I also have it on my card base going around the edges. And finally, it's going to be offset with my sentiment. I'm going to center this. And there you can see I have that 1/4 inch border all the way around. I'm going to add some foam tape once I glue these two pieces together. I did add that vintage photo and the antique linen to this label because I wanted to make sure that I had that same continuity. Again, I'm going to drop this just a little bit to leave a little bit of a border to add a little bit more interest. And once I remove the foam tape, I am going to center my card up on my grids, and I'll center the sentiment onto my card, and that will be my finished birthday card for today. So I want to wish Neha and Debbie a very happy birthday. I want to thank you again for taking time to stop by my channel. I hope you made it all the way to the end. I really appreciate you taking time to watch. Make sure that you ring that bell, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll leave you with one last picture of my card, and until next time, I hope that you have a fabulous day.